One man, one argument, one tiny piece of metal geometry. And it saved 1 billion people from starvation. No, seriously. The device I'm about to show you is the reason you ate today. And almost nobody knows the name of the guy who invented it or the lawsuit that nearly buried it forever. Okay, picture this. It's 1917. You're a farmer, not the Instagram kind with the cute overalls, the real kind. Mud under your nails, blisters on your hands, and your back is finished. Because everything you do, plowing, tilling, seeding, you do behind a horse or a mule, wrestling a chunk of iron through dirt that fights you every inch. Now here's where it gets interesting. Tractors exist. They've existed since the late 1800s, but here's what nobody tells you. Early tractors were terrible. I'm talking 10,000-pound steam-breathing monsters that sank into wet fields, flipped over backwards on hills, and this is real, killed more farmers than they helped. In fact, tractor rollovers were so deadly in the early 20th century that they became the #1 cause of farm fatalities. Number 1. The machine built to save farming was literally murdering farmers, but the killing wasn't even the biggest problem. The biggest problem was something so basic, so obvious, that when one man finally solved it, engineers couldn't believe nobody had done it sooner. The problem? You couldn't attach anything to a tractor properly. I know, sounds ridiculous. But stay with me, because this one engineering failure held back global food production for decades. And the man who fixed it, he wasn't even an engineer. His name was Harry Ferguson. And if you've never heard of him, there's a reason for that. One we'll get to later that involves a handshake, a betrayal, and the largest lawsuit in American history at that time. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Harry Ferguson was born in 1884 on a farm in Northern Ireland, and he hated it. Hated the back-breaking labor. Hated watching his father wreck his body behind a plow. By the time Harry was a teenager, he wanted nothing to do with farming. So what did he do? He got obsessed with machines, motorcycles, cars, and then, this is wild, he became one of the first people in Ireland to build and fly an airplane. In 1909, 6 years after the Wright brothers. The guy was fearless, but here's the twist. Flying didn't stick. What stuck was a thought he couldn't shake. Why are tractors so stupid? See, Harry had watched his father struggle his entire childhood. And now, with his mechanical mind, he could see the problem clearly. Every tractor on the market worked the same way. You hitched an implement, a plow, a harrow, a seeder, behind the tractor with chains or a drawbar. Loose, sloppy, dangerous. When the plow hit a rock, the tractor reared up like a horse. When you turned, the implement swung wide and destroyed your crop rows. And the weight? All wrong. The heavy implement dragged behind, meaning the tractor's front wheels lifted off the ground constantly. Farmers were dying because their tractors were doing wheelies in a field. Harry Ferguson looked at this disaster and said, what if the implement wasn't behind the tractor? What if it was part of the tractor? That question, that single reframe, would feed the world. All right, here's where it gets brilliant. And I promise, even if you've never touched a tractor, this is going to blow your mind because of how elegantly simple it is. Ferguson spent years experimenting. Failed prototype after failed prototype. But by the early 1920s, he'd cracked it. He called it the 3-point linkage system. 3 attachment points. 2 lower arms, 1 upper arm. That's it. The implement, your plow, your tiller, whatever, connects at these 3 points and becomes a rigid part of the tractor itself. Now here's the genius, and this is the part that separates Harry Ferguson from every other tractor tinkerer of the era. He built in something called draft control. When the plow hits resistance, a rock, hard clay, a root, the system automatically transfers weight to the rear wheels. The harder the ground pushes back, the harder the tractor pushes down. Instead of flipping backwards, the tractor grips tighter. Read that again. The thing that used to kill farmers, resistance in the soil, now made the tractor work better. Ferguson turned the enemy into an ally with geometry. And because the implement was locked into 3 rigid points instead of flopping on a chain, turning was precise. Backing up was possible. The plow couldn't swing wide and destroy your crops. It was, and I don't use this word lightly, perfect. But here's what nobody expected. The three-point hitch didn't just make tractors safer, it made them smaller. Because the implement's weight now pressed down on the drive wheels, you didn't need a massive heavy tractor to get traction. A small, light, affordable tractor could now do the work of machines 3 times its size. Farming had just been democratized, and the world wasn't ready for what came next. Okay, so Ferguson has this revolutionary system. He's proven it works. He's been refining it for over a decade. But he has a problem. He's a small operator from Northern Ireland with no manufacturing capacity to scale globally. He needs a partner, a big one. Enter Henry Ford. Yes, that Henry Ford. In 1938, Ferguson travels to Dearborn, Michigan, and demonstrates his tractor to Ford on Ford's own estate. And what happens next has become one of the most famous and most disputed moments in agricultural history. After watching the demonstration, Ford reportedly said something like, "That's the best thing I've ever seen." They shook hands, and on that handshake, no written contract, no lawyers, no signatures, they agreed to build tractors together. Ford would manufacture, Ferguson would supply the three-point hitch system and handle distribution, a handshake, for what would become a multi-million-dollar global enterprise. In 1938, and for a while, it worked beautifully. The Ford Ferguson 9N rolled off the line in 1939, and it was a sensation. Lightweight, affordable, revolutionary. Farmers who could never afford a tractor before were suddenly buying one. Food production surged. But then Henry Ford died in 19, and his grandson, Henry Ford II, took over the company and looked at the handshake deal and thought, why are we sharing profits with this Irish guy? So Ford did something that would spark an absolute war. They broke the handshake, built their own tractor, the Ford 8N, with a suspiciously similar three-point hitch, and cut Ferguson out completely. Harry Ferguson didn't take it quietly. In 1948, he filed a lawsuit against Ford Motor Company for patent infringement. And this wasn't some small claims dispute. Ferguson was seeking $340 million in damages in 1948 dollars. Adjusted for inflation, that's over $4 billion today. The lawsuit dragged on for 4 years. It was bitter, it was personal. Ford's legal team argued the handshake deal was vague. Ferguson's team argued the patents were ironclad. In the end, in 1952, they settled. Ferguson received $9.25 million, a fraction of what he'd asked for. But more importantly, Ford was forced to redesign their hitch system. Ferguson had proven his point. This was his invention. But here's the thing that's both tragic and remarkable. While Ferguson was fighting in court, his three-point hitch was quietly conquering the planet. Every major tractor manufacturer, John Deere, Massey Harris, International Harvester, they all saw it, they all knew, and one by one, they adopted the three-point hitch or systems inspired by it. By the 1960s, the three-point hitch became an official international standard, literally standardized across the industry. Any implement from any manufacturer could connect to any tractor. Universal, interchangeable, global. So let's zoom out. Let's talk about what actually happened because of 3 metal arms and a draft control valve. Before the three-point hitch, one farmer could feed about 15 people. After the mechanization revolution that Ferguson's invention accelerated, one farmer could feed over 150. Today, in countries using modern equipment, that number is closer to 165. The global population in 1900 was 1.6 billion. Today, it's over 8 billion. And the reason, the fundamental mechanical reason, that food production kept pace with that growth, a system designed by a farm kid from Northern Ireland who hated farming so much that he revolutionized it. Harry Ferguson died in He was 75 years old. He never became a household name. Most people have never heard of him. Henry Ford, everyone knows. John Deere, it's on hats and t-shirts. But Harry Ferguson, the man whose invention is on virtually every tractor on Earth, remains a ghost in the story of the machine age. And that's what gets me about this story. It's not just about a tractor attachment. It's about how the most important inventions aren't always the flashiest. They're not the airplane or the automobile or the iPhone. Sometimes, the invention that changes everything is 3 metal arms that hold a plow at the right angle. Sometimes the thing that saves a billion lives is so simple, so quiet, so boring that nobody even notices. Until now. If you just learned something you didn't expect to learn today, and you want more stories like this about the hidden inventions that secretly run the world, you know what to do. And if you know a farmer, send them this video, because they're driving Harry Ferguson's invention right now, and they might not even know it. I'll see you in the next one.